DreamWorks Animation has unveiled a new chapter in the beloved How to Train Your Dragon saga, with Dragons: The Nine Realms. This announcement came as a surprise to many, considering The Hidden World was marketed as the definitive conclusion of the franchise. Director Dean DeBlois, who helmed the trilogy's final two installments, had hinted that spin-off projects might emerge from the universe he helped create, but few anticipated what this would actually mean for the story's legacy. The series takes place 1,300 years after the emotional farewell between Hiccup and Toothless. In this distant future, a new generation of characters discovers dragons hidden in the modern world, sparking adventures that promise to capture the magic of the original films. Among the dragons revealed in early promotional materials is a striking black and white Fury dragon, clearly a descendant of the Nightlights, those adorable offspring of Toothless and the Light Fury we glimpsed at the end of Hidden World. But there's something wild about this dragon, and you'll soon know exactly what that is. The How to Train Your Dragon franchise built its reputation on more than just stunning visuals and heartwarming friendships. The trilogy, particularly under Dean DeBlois' direction, created a world that felt grounded despite its fantastical elements. Dragons had biology, ecosystems, and behaviors that made sense within their universe. The bittersweet ending of The Hidden World saw Hiccup releasing Toothless and the dragons to a sanctuary beyond human reach, protecting them from a world not ready to coexist peacefully. It was meant to be an ending, a definitive, emotionally resonant conclusion that honored the growth of both human and dragon characters while acknowledging the harsh realities of their world. Yet here we are, with the Nine Realms resurrecting the franchise for a new generation. While DeBlois himself suggested the possibility of spin-offs, one wonders if he envisioned the biological nightmare that the show's premise inadvertently creates. The series introduces us to a new set of human characters discovering dragons in the modern era, including a black and white Fury dragon that serves as a clear narrative link to Toothless and the Light Fury's legacy. This dragon, presumably a descendant of the Nightlights, the three offspring that we saw at the end of The Hidden World, becomes the smoking gun that exposes a deeply uncomfortable truth about dragon reproduction in this timeline. Let's establish the baseline facts. Toothless was repeatedly confirmed throughout the original series to be the last Night Fury. This wasn't just dialogue, it was a core element of his character and the story's emotional weight. His species had been hunted to extinction, making him a lonely survivor until he found family with Hiccup, and eventually the Light Fury. The Light Fury represented hope, a chance for Toothless' genetic line to continue. Their offspring, Dart, Pouncer, and Roughrunner, were precious not just as adorable dragon babies, but as the only possible future for Night Fury genetics. These Nightlights, as fans call them, carried 50% Night Fury DNA and 50% Light Fury DNA, creating their distinctive mixed coloration. Now fast forward 1,300 years. For context, that's longer than the time between the Norman conquest of England and today. It's roughly 65 dragon generations, assuming a generous 20-year generation time for those long-lived creatures. For a black and white Fury dragon to exist in this era, the Night Fury's black coloring must have persisted through all those generations. While we're dealing with fictional creatures, the original trilogy took pains to establish that dragons follow recognizable biological patterns. Looking at the Nightlights themselves provides our canonical example of Fury dragon inheritance. Two of the three offspring, Dart and Roughrunner, display primarily black coloration with white accents, while Pouncer shows the inverse, predominantly white with black markings. This distribution tells us several things. First, both color genes can express in either sex, ruling out sex-linked inheritance. Second, neither color appears to be completely dominant, as we see blending rather than one color entirely masking the other. In real-world genetics, when we see this kind of pattern in reptiles, we're typically looking at incomplete dominance or codominance, where both parents' traits express simultaneously. The 2-to-1 ratio of black dominant to white dominant offspring suggests that black may have a slight genetic edge, but not enough to eliminate white coloration entirely. Here's the critical issue. If the Nightlights were to breed with the Light Fury population in the Hidden World, as logic suggests they would, the Night Fury's black coloration would dilute rapidly. Each generation would add more Light Fury genetics to the pool, pushing the black gene toward extinction. By generation 3 or 4, you'd be hard-pressed to see any black at all. By generation 65, it would be a genetic miracle. Unless, of course, the breeding pool remained dangerously small. Population genetics gives us a concept called inbreeding coefficient, which measures the probability that two alleles of a gene are identical by descent from a common ancestor. In healthy populations, this number stays low because individuals mate with partners who aren't close relatives, maintaining genetic diversity. For the Night Fury coloration to persist 13 years into the future, the breeding population would need to remain isolated and small, with frequent mating between close relatives. Given that only 3 Nightlights exist at the start, and Toothless is the only source of Night Fury genetics, the math becomes grimly simple. To maximize the chances of black coloration persisting, Dart, the female Nightlight, would need to breed back with her father, Toothless. This father-daughter pairing would produce offspring with 75% 100% Night Fury genetics, rather than the 50% that breeding with unrelated Light Furies would provide. These offspring would then need to continue breeding within this limited family line, cycling through combinations of parent-offspring, sibling-sibling, and grandparent-grandchild pairings. The genetic problems with this scenario are severe. When organisms share this much DNA, harmful recessive traits have nowhere to hide. Both parents carry the same potential genetic defects, meaning their offspring have a much higher chance of inheriting 2 copies of any problematic genes. Population bottlenecks occur when species numbers drop dramatically, forcing the survivors to rebuild from a tiny genetic base. The Night Fury situation represents an extreme bottleneck, a single individual's genetics attempting to propagate across more than a millennium. Modern conservation biology has studied numerous species recovering from bottlenecks. The California condor, reduced to just 27 individuals in 1987, now numbers over 500, but still shows the genetic scars of that near-extinction event. Cheetahs, having gone through a bottleneck roughly 10,000 years ago, are so genetically similar that they can accept skin grafts from unrelated individuals. Their immune systems literally cannot tell each other apart. But even these examples had larger founding populations than the Night Fury line. 3 offspring from a single pair, with no other source of Night Fury DNA available. The genetic diversity would be catastrophically low from day one. Every dragon in the subsequent lineage would be descended from the same 2 individuals, carrying duplicate sets of their genes, compounding any genetic weaknesses with each passing generation. By the time we reach the dragon in the 9 realms, we're looking at an animal whose genome has been through countless rounds of inbreeding. The fact that it appears healthy and functional in the show's promotional materials is frankly biologically implausible. Real animals with this level of inbreeding typically show obvious physical and behavioral problems. Could there be other explanations for the black and white Fury dragon's existence? Let's examine the possibilities. For one, there might have been hidden Night Furies. Perhaps other Night Furies survived, unknown to Hiccup and Toothless, and made it to the hidden world. This would solve the genetic problem instantly. A larger founding population means more genetic diversity and less need for inbreeding. However, the explanation contradicts explicit canon. The franchise repeatedly emphasized Toothless' status as the last Night Fury. Entire plot points revolved around this fact. Retconning it would undermine the emotional weight of the original trilogy. Moreover, if other Night Furies existed, why wouldn't they have appeared during the events of the hidden world, when dragons were gathering? There's also the possibility of genetic mutation. Maybe the black coloration reappeared through random mutation in the Light Fury population. Genetics can sometimes reactivate or mutate to produce traits not seen in recent generations. While theoretically possible, this explanation is statistically unlikely. Mutations that perfectly recreate complex coloration patterns are rare. Moreover, the dragon in the 9 realms doesn't just show some black markings, it displays the distinctive Night Fury pattern, suggesting direct genetic inheritance rather than coincidental mutation. Another factor we can consider is hybrid vigor. Perhaps the initial cross between Night Fury and Light Fury created unexpectedly robust genetics that somehow resisted inbreeding depression. This is wishful thinking. Hybrid vigor occurs in the first generation of a cross and can make hybrids healthier than their parents. However, it doesn't protect against inbreeding depression in subsequent generations. Once you start breeding hybrids back to each other or to their parents, you lose the advantages of hybrid vigor and face the same genetic problems as any other inbred population. Should we care about genetic plausibility in a cartoon about flying, fire-breathing reptiles? It's a fair question. After all, the original trilogy asked us to accept plenty of impossible things. Dragons that spit different types of fire based on species, flight mechanics that defy physics, and ecosystems that shouldn't be sustainable. But there's a difference between asking audiences to accept a fantastical premise and asking them to ignore the logical consequences of your own world building. The original trilogy established that dragons followed biological rules within their universe. They bred, they evolved, they went extinct. Toothless' status as the last Night Fury wasn't just background information. It was thematically central to his character and story. When the 9 realms casually introduces a dragon that can only exist through biological mechanisms the show certainly won't address, it breaks the implicit contract with viewers who invested emotionally in the original trilogy's world. Perhaps the real secret of the 9 realms isn't the unfortunate genetics of its Fury dragon, it's the cynical calculation behind the decision to create the show at all. The hidden world provided closure. It said goodbye. It trusted audiences to accept an ending. But in modern entertainment, intellectual property is too valuable to let rest. There's always one more story to tell, one more generation of viewers to capture, one more revenue stream to exploit. Whether that story makes sense within the established universe becomes a secondary concern. For those of us who love the original trilogy, the 9 realms serves as a reminder that not every story needs to continue, and not every world needs to be revisited. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for a beloved franchise is to let it end with dignity, rather than resurrect it with implications you're not prepared to address. While this new dragon is definitely not my favorite, click on this video where I rank my top 10 favorite dragons from the movies. Go ahead, click it.